Good morning. Want to get California Today by email? Here's the sign up. The Republican tax bill moving through Congress eliminates the deduction for state income taxes and limits the deduction for property taxes. Californians write big checks for both, which is why there's so much concern about the bill. That mortgage interest deduction was long described as the third rail of federal tax law untouchable. But now that cuts to that deduction are being written into the Republican tax plans, it seems fair to wonder whether a bedrock of California tax policy, also long described as untouchable Proposition 13, the 1978 initiative which put a cap on property taxes, is also up for discussion. Or should be. Here's why. Because of Proposition 13, California homeowners, or at least those who have lived in the same house for a while, tend to pay less in property taxes than incomes taxes. So given the changes under consideration in Washington, it might make sense for state lawmakers to figure out a way for Californians to pay more in property taxes, where they can take a federal deduction, and less in income taxes. This presumes that one of the compromises floating around in Washington to count both property taxes and income taxes against the $10,000 limit does not become law. Joe Matthews, a longtime critic of the state's governance system, said the Republican proposal could stir enough concern among Californians to embolden elected officials to grab the rail. But he isn't counting on it. There might be political pressure and more conversation about tax reform if this happens, he said. George Skelton will write that we finally need to get tax reform through. Wise people will say it. They'll be right and it won't happen. Still, he said, it would be great if Donald Trump did us the favor of making us do tax reform. One person who agrees with the "it won't happen" argument is Gov. Jerry Brown, who lived through the Proposition 13 wars. In an interview, Mr. Brown made clear he had no intention of taking on the state tax code, in no small part because Proposition 13 requires a 2/3 vote to raise taxes in most cases. Very implausible, he said. There's not going to be a 2/3 vote. No way, no how moderate Democrats? Do you really think that's a viable possibility? Please note, we regularly highlight articles on news sites that have limited access for non-subscribers. Ed Lee, a well-respected civil rights lawyer who became the first Asian American to be elected as mayor of San Francisco, died early on Tuesday of undisclosed causes. The New York Times: more bad news for California from Washington. The Republican tax bill would eliminate a deduction for personal losses suffered from wildfires. A silver lining, this would not take effect until 2018. The New York Times: the wildfires are testing one of California's main fire prevention strategies, requiring homeowners to clear brush around the house. The results have been mixed. When you have a tsunami version of a fire, it's hard to defend. The New York Times. Sacramento is booming.